Right, so I'm here to talk to you about a really important subject that impacts lives every day, sometimes without people realizing. As you can see, this is mental health. The purpose of my presentation is to inform you about mental health issues, provide real life context to mental health, and then also help you to sort of better understand mental health as well as, what you can do to help others or maybe even yourself. Before I go any further, I just think I'd like to advise you that the mental health journey that I'll talk about is my own, and there may be some topics and discussions that you might find upsetting. So if you need to leave or anything, feel free to do so. So I think firstly, it's really important to give some background on mental health context, particularly as work, and many of us are working. So the Health Organization reports that 7% of the total workforce suffers with a mental health problem, some of which may be undiagnosed. So as a result, this equates to mental health related absences costing UK businesses £45 billion each year, which is obviously an astronomical figure. And unless we're proactive in our approach to tackle mental health head on, then this figure will continue to rise. So now that we've sort of contextualized mental health to the workplace, I'd like to give you some background on my mental health journey with sort of like a brief overview of my life before we look at certain aspects in more detail. So sort of my mental health journey started when I was 12. So I became a young carer for my grandparents. My gran, who has macular degeneration, which is a condition which causes you to lose your eyesight, and my granddad, who has a terminal illness. So sort of throughout these times, I've suffered really badly with anxiety and depression due to the pressures this kind of puts on my life. I always thought that my feelings would pass, but instead they grew stronger and darker. So I'm going to talk obviously today about anxiety and depression later in the presentation. And then the other sort of event that had a serious impact on my mental well-being was on 13th of December 2018. My girlfriend decided that this world was too much for her. Well, I guess that's how I process it, but I've come to realize over time that that's my cover up for the word suicide. At this time in my life, my kind of world spiraled out of control. I dropped out of uni, turned to daily drinking, and had suicidal thoughts. Now, I appreciate that that's a very heavy introduction, but if I try to sugarcoat it, then the message wouldn't be as powerful, the stigma wouldn't be tackled, and people may think it's easy to recover from mental illness. So, as I previously established, I'm a young carer, and being a young carer is definitely a really tough job. It requires you to definitely grow up really quickly and show maturity above your years. If I take you through my current daily routine, it might give you an idea of what my life's like. So every day I wake up at 5:30 a.m. I go for a run or a cycle, as this exercise helps prepare my mind mentally for the day ahead by clearing out any built up stress, anxieties I may already be feeling. I then return about 7:30, get myself ready for the day, then head to my grandparents at 8:30. I get them out of bed and start making the breakfast. I then complete, household chores that need doing before heading off to work or whatever I'm doing for the day. Then on my lunch break, I go to their house and make sandwiches. When I was in my previous job role, I'd do this in the morning and leave them in the fridge. After I finish work, I then go back at dinner time and cook them a hot meal, catering for the special dietary requirements of diabetics, as both my grandparents are diabetic. Then I leave them to rest and come back around sort of 9 p.m., put them to bed and lock up the house. And this is a daily recurrence, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So as discussed, being a young carer made me really anxious. This is because I wouldn't know if the last time I left their house, it would be the last time that I saw them alive. I was also seriously depressed as well, because looking after people who are having a terrible life themselves, that they don't have the ability to fully look after themselves, is heartbreaking to see. I mean, some days I believed it was easier to jump off a bridge than to see my grandparents suffering and struggling to do the basic things that we all take for granted. So to follow on, I'd like to go into more detail about anxiety and depression. So if we look at anxiety first, what is anxiety? Well, anxiety is what we feel when we're worried, tense, afraid, particularly about things that are going to happen or which we think are going to happen in the future. Occasionally, anxiety is a normal human experience, but when it's diagnosed as anxiety as a mental health problem, it's when your feelings are very strong and they last for a long time and they become very overwhelming. And you may also experience some physical symptoms. You might not be able to sleep often or get a good night's sleep, or you may have things like panic attacks. So then if I put this into sort of context for me, I think my anxiety was particularly bad in my school days. I'd always be late for school, and even though all my teachers knew about my care and responsibilities and the reasons why I was late, I would always get worked up about arriving late. So every time I thought about arriving late, I would feel sick and start breathing fast, sweating. Walking into the classroom late was like stepping into a burning fire, and I could think of nothing worse in my life. Teachers would make, snide comments at me, such as, oh, you're late again, Marcy Will, and nice of you to finally join us, which just made me feel that I was a worthless piece of crap and didn't really deserve happiness. And you may think these feelings are extreme, but until you've been in the situation yourself, you won't understand what it feels like. Try to imagine yourself in your most uncomfortable feelings constantly playing on your mind and every second of every day. And that's what anxiety feels like. So, how do we ease our anxiety? Well, there's obviously lots of ways to ease your anxiety. I think the top one for me is try talking about your feelings to a friend, family member. You might need someone professional to talk to, but just getting that out in the open, sharing how you're feeling. And, you can always contact organizations such as the Samaritans. Another great tip is if you feel like you're really anxious, try breathing calmly. There's lots of exercises online that you can find to help control your breathing. Exercise is another really important one. Go swimming, running, cycling, play sports, whatever it is to do to keep your body active. Maintain a healthy diet. I mean, it's easy to just be lazy and go, oh yeah, I'll just have another takeaway, and 5 days later you've had 5 takeaways in a row. It's about maintaining a healthy diet. There's plenty of free mental health wellbeing guides as well that you can download, read, relaxation apps as well, just to really, it's all about trying to calm yourself down, really. Even if you're not suffering with anxiety, these activities can be really beneficial in maintaining a positive mental well-being and outlook on life for yourself. So I'd recommend that you all sort of use some of these techniques. So then, how do you recognize signs of anxiety? Well, it can be very tough, but there are some key signs that may be related to anxiety. So, such as, dizziness, tiredness, a notable strong heartbeat, muscle aches, trembling, shaking, dry mouth, excessive sweating, shortness of breath, stomach aches, feeling sick, headaches, pins and needles, difficulty falling or staying asleep. My sort of advice is to help someone with anxiety. The best thing you can do is take a moment out of your day and check up on them. But, don't just ask, are you okay? Because that's the easy way out for them, is to say, yeah, I'm fine. You need to be asking questions that, take them further than just giving an easy answer. So, for example, you need to say things like, I see that you've been looking really tired lately. Is something on your mind, playing on your mind? Are you feeling anxious? This question is much more likely to provoke a truthful response, because the question shows that to the recipient that you're going further than just a simple question. As an anxiety sufferer myself who has hid their feelings for a long time, an "Are you okay?" question was like the winning lottery ticket. I could just say yeah and brush it off, keeping my feelings bottled up and acting like the world around me was okay. It takes a courageous act to speak out and say that you're not okay, but it takes an equally brave person to challenge someone about their feelings in order to help them. So I'd just encourage you to do that if you see someone who you think might be struggling. So I'd just like to move on to depression now. So, what is depression? Well, depression is more than simply feeling unhappy or fed up for a few days. Most people go through periods of feeling down in your life, but when you're depressed, you feel persistently sad for weeks or months rather than just a few days. A lot of people think that depression is trivial and not a sort of genuine health condition. They're wrong. It is a real illness with real symptoms. Depression is not a sign of weakness, and I stand by that forever, or something that you can just snap out of by pulling yourself together. It's a long uphill battle and a struggle to get through it, but you can. So if I give you some sort of context on my depression, when I was depressed, I'd wake up each morning and question the point in me getting out of bed, what the actual point was in me being in this world at all, if I just felt lonely and upset all the time. I felt like I didn't have a friend in the world, and quite frankly, if I died tomorrow, I don't think anyone would miss me. Maybe the world would be a better place with me out of it. These were some of my thoughts I would be thinking during every minute of every hour of every day in a very vicious cycle. sort of was always thinking about a way out, asking for moments where I could be set free from the chains of my depression. The hardest part was each day I looked at myself in the mirror and was ashamed about the way I felt, calling myself weak and pathetic, saying die, die, die over in my head. And the depression was winning at this point, but you can always escape depression. It's a long and treacherous road, but I promise you that it can be achieved. And I guess I could say that I'm living proof of that. So, so how do we tell if someone's or yourself may be depressed? Well, depression affects a lot of people in different ways. It can cause a wide range and variety of symptoms. They range from lasting feelings of unhappiness and hopelessness to losing interest in sort of the things that you do and enjoy, and feeling very upset, tearful quite often. Many people with depression also have anxiety. There can be physical symptoms as well. You might feel constantly tired, sleeping badly, having no appetite, various aches and pains. And the thing with depression is it ranges from like mild to severe. It's mildish. You may simply feel persistently low in spirit, while severe depression can make you feel suicidal and that your life is no longer worth living. I just think the difference between like depression and low mood is if it's sustained over a long, long period of time. So, what causes depression? Well, sometimes there is a trigger for depression, life-changing events such as bereavement, losing your job, giving birth, these type of things can bring it on. But also people with a family history of depression are more likely to experience it themselves. But you can also just become depressed for no obvious reason. Okay, so how can you help if you think someone has depression? It's simple in a way, but difficult at the same time. You can talk to your family, your colleagues, your friends, someone that you trust to understand your feelings and help you move forward. It's all about asking those difficult questions and just take an interest in people and their world. Not just sort of in the workplace, ask about how things are going on at home, ask those difficult questions because you need to get those difficult responses. But if you're afraid of those answers, get someone to support you in asking these questions. Just show people that you care, and most importantly, smile at somebody. The smile speaks more than 1,000 words. It's an uplifting emotion that's contagious. So if you don't do anything else, just smile at people. So I'm going to talk about the 13th of December 2018, which was, I must say, it's probably the hardest day of my life. It kind of started out as a normal day. I'd not long returned home from my first term at uni. I was getting really excited and ready for Christmas, which is my favourite time of the year. Upon reflection, if when I look back at the day, I don't really remember a lot. It's kind of a whirlwind of darkness that would bring sort of dark clouds into my life for a long time. Her parents called me over to the house and told me that my girlfriend, their daughter, had overdosed on tablets and taken her life. I mean, at that point, you may as well rip my heart out and just let me join her, because that's the only place I wanted to be. I just wanted that one more moment, that one more conversation, one more day, in which I could have said something different, done something different, and maybe she'd still be alive. I always say to myself that, and to other people, that the day that she died, a part of me died forever. But, now that I've had time to look back, there's nothing more I could have done. Her parents always said to me that she was always happiest when I was around. I could light up her world, even, on a pitch black dark day. But it's not really consolation. And then I always remember the last thing that she ever said to me was, "I'll see you soon." Now you might think, well, that's a bit strange. Why are you talking about this? Well, there is nothing strange about those words. But when we put it into the context of what happened, maybe it was her way of saying goodbye, don't worry, I'll see you again someday. But, I will see her again one day, but only when my body gives in and not because my mind has been beaten. For as long as my heart keeps going, I'll find reasons to be alive and live life to its optimum. And to quote the phrase, after all, life is life like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you're going to get. So I think it's important to then look at what happened to my life sort of after that event. Um, so I quit uni before the new year started. I was drinking huge amounts of alcohol so that I felt numb, because the only way I could cope with being in this world at the time was for me to not even have a concept or reality that I was even alive. I got so drunk that I could pretend to be someone I'm not, that didn't give a monkey's about anything and had no care or responsibilities for anyone. And at that point, I was free from pain. If I'm honest with myself, during these times, I was a horrible person, and I'm ashamed of the way I behaved, because I used what had happened as an excuse to be the worst version of myself. And people always ask me, that we can understand and sympathize with that, why you behave like that. But I always say to myself, was it an acceptable excuse? It never is. You shouldn't behave like that just because something's bad happened to you. You don't become, you shouldn't behave in an aggressive, horrible way just because of a traumatic event. Okay, so the next topic is really difficult to talk about. But as with mental health and, all its symptoms, it's crucial to empower yourself to speak out. Just during this period in my life, I did contemplate ending my own life. I sat on the roof of my house many nights and was building myself up to jump. And, you may be thinking to yourself now that that's kind of sick and twisted that you can talk about it so easily. But when you get to such a dark stage in your life, it's important to recount and tell it again, I believe, because it's easy to always talk about the good things that have happened to you in your life, and it's much more difficult to talk about the bad. And, my sort of belief is that someone listening to this, may resonate with myself and could stop themselves from doing something to harm themselves. Hope. Probably the most important word to me is that I have no doubt it's the reason that I'm alive. Hope is the reason that I never jumped. Each time I found a reason of hope, whether that be I had my family to look after, I had my friends that I could see. Being the youngest, first team captain of my rugby club, I like to flex that one. But, if we take joking aside here for a minute, when you don't want to actually be alive anymore, you have to find a reason of hope. I do believe, however, that it's not easy. So I'm actually just going to give you all a reason of hope. Me talking to you today, a man who you may never meet, have never met, truly care. I actually truly care and value about every single human being on this planet as a person, an individual, and an important member of society, and someone who deserves the chance to shine in this world. So, if you take this, remember that Will always cares and will always care. And let me bring that hope to you in a moment when you can't see any. So that's the end of my presentation on my sort of whistle top stop tour of sort of my life, my mental health journey, and touching on, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. I just want to add at the end that if anyone ever wants to chat, you know how to get in touch with me. And just thank you all for listening.